Hey folks, it's Steve and Matt with another episode of the Risk Control Show. And I'm just trying to get my screen here all set up for you guys. We got a great topic today. We did some kick butt training. I'm trying to be nice here. Did some kick butt training on Saturday in our new training location. It was good. It was good. It was real good, wasn't it, Matt?
It was a lot of fun, and I felt the trainees really enjoyed it, and they got a lot out of the training as well. But I think that it's really important that just everybody had a good time. Training doesn't have to be boring and dull.
It doesn't.
It does not.
I'm looking for. Hold on, I'm gonna find the video, or not the videos, but what did I do with the image? Oh yeah, I want to pull up some of the images. Well, while I'm doing that, we did a topic on hazard communication, and it was really funny because one of the old timers yelled out, "Nanny state!" and I'm like, uh-huh, yeah, uh-huh, nanny state, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, nanny state. Well, what do you think, Matt? Is it necessary nanny state?
I mean, that of course is a pejorative term, and I can understand it. But here's the thing: I think that there's some impetus in government circles to note that some of the objectives they want to achieve are not achievable unless they're nitpicking every single little bit of society. So they don't trust people to do the right thing. So they feel they need to step in and set in these rules, guidelines, laws, and enforce them to ensure that those are happening. We see this a lot in California with environmental laws. So do you get paper straws instead of plastic straws at the restaurant, for instance? Or where can you uh, dispose of your food refuse? Are you allowed to put it in the landfill area, or do you need to have another container for food rubbish? So, or recycling, same sort of thing. So, people aren't apparently they're not doing these activities on their own to the satisfaction of the powers that be. So as a result, they are putting in regulations that are requiring us to do it, but also requiring them to enforce it. So here we are, nanny state.
Oh man, I don't know, man. I don't know. Do you think? I I mean, this. I hope our viewers are going to weigh in on this because this is really a tough one. I just showed some images of our new training facility, and it's awesome. So anyway, you guys saw it there. But Matt, part of that's right, and there's a big part of it that's not right.
What
And
part of it is that?
well, I think the biggest nanny state example is the famous hot coffee McDonald's case.
Right.
And did that come from government? No, it came from a person that spilled coffee on
Mm.
themselves and got burns and then sued McDonald's. And so the insurance company said, you know what? We got to reduce the liability because that's a huge payout.
Mhm.
And so I think America, especially when I talk to people from Asian countries that recently here or have lived in Eastern Asia, um, they're very surprised by the litigious nature of the United States. And I think this causes a lot of these so-called nanny state issues.
Right.
But
Right.
you got to wonder, the chicken or the egg, and what do you do with that? What do you do with it? Because there is no real good answer to this. If people are not going to take personal responsibility and they're going to sue everybody every time something happens, which we keep seeing more and more and more and more and more and more of, then you run into these issues. But then on the flip side of it, you see the employers who don't do what they're required to do, and then you see the employees that don't do what they're required to do and cause all kinds of problems. And then you see on top of it, um, research and studies that have occurred over the years because now we've had time to study them. Kind of like
Right.
you can look at asbestos, you can look at cigarette smoking, you can look at secondhand smoke, you can look at all kinds of things, and they come up, and then you go, "Holy smokes, we got a real issue here that we never addressed before."
Yeah.
And I think what was really quite illustrative with the whole nanny state comment was that when we started the training for that section, because we did 3 trainings that day, but when we started that hazard communication section and they got yelled out, nanny state, and then we gave them the safety data sheets without product identifiers on there, stuff that they use every day, and asked them to complete the test to identify what PPE. They said, "Well, what's PPE? What? Where?
Right.
Well, you know, what is
Right.
this?" And I don't know how to read it. And but so what you're telling me is you've been operating in a state of ignorance.
Ignorance.
Yes,
Ignorance. Yeah.
about this whole process. And, and then people are getting cancer and they're doing all this. I mean, the Monsanto, San Francisco custodian or gardener applying the
Right.
pesticides. That's a whole nother example. Time moves forward and we learn things. And so when you learn those things, you have to take actions to protect people. But things aren't as simple as they once were. I mean, the other nanny state issue is DDT and all the pesticides that have been applied on our food products for all this time.
Right. Right.
And you got to tell people explicitly, and you get that nanny state on the hamburger. How many people are coming down with E. coli poisoning because they don't know how to properly cook
Hmm.
the beef?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Or maybe you're speaking of food service, maybe you're a establishment that focuses on particular foods that are raw or undercooked. So all the menus are required to have basically a warning on them that says if you order eggs over easy, there's a possibility there could still be some pathogens in those eggs. If you order a steak rare, there's a possibility that some pathogens that are inside have not been killed through the cooking process. If you order, if you have raw oysters, you're exposing yourself directly to that. There's been no process to clean those out other than coming from a reputable operator who brings that from clean water instead of from contaminated sources.
Right.
So, so, and you basically the law is this has to be here so that hey, this covers the establishment if a guest orders one of these things and gets sick and says, well, it's right here. you know, and you chose to ignore it. You chose to order that item anyway, and you
Right.
got sick.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah, and again, where does this come down to? I think it comes down to the legal nature of our society and also our schools and what they're teaching. You know,
mhm.
it's funny. I was listening to something, and they were arguing whether or not kids should be taught how to play video games in schools because of these recent movies about Gran Turismo, and in
Right,
some cultures where they're earning a living playing video games.
right,
And I have to say, the argument was completely against allowing them to play video games in school. But when you look at this, there's a whole industry that supports the playing of the video games.
Yeah.
The design of the video games, the coding, the programming, the equipment sales, all of it, uh, manufacturing. It's an entire industry and it supports a lot of positions. EA
Right.
Sports is just down the road here from us, and
Mhm.
they got a huge building, and there's all kinds of programmers and designers and
Oh, yeah.
logicians and all that kind of stuff going on. So you look at this and you say, well, do we need to teach more about food safety in schools? Do we need to teach more about personal choice and responsibility? Because that's really what it comes down to, in my opinion. And the old saying goes, if you're going to act like a kid, I'm going to treat you like a kid. But
Yeah.
if every time you do something and you're that silly about how you go about it, then yeah, I have to tell you and make you sign something and make and see this and make sure you got this and make sure it's available and make sure it's this and that. And it does become a nanny state, but the problem is you have taken no initiative to learn or to understand what you're dealing with and working with. Every time we do these things, we tell people, you have the right to refuse to do the work if it's unsafe, and you can't reasonably resolve it. You have the right to review this. You have the right to ask questions. And you should raise your hand when you don't know something. And then we say, how many of you have read the owner's manual?
It doesn't let's just say, does it look like a Kansas plain or does it look like a forest after you ask that question, Steve? I think I think we're not in Kansas. We're in Kansas in this case.
Yeah.
So
And then I say, how many of you have read the policy?
not so much.
And then, okay, so you work with these four chemicals on a daily basis, and you can't even understand or identify what it is, and or what the hazards are, or what gloves you're supposed to use, or what kind of ventilation you're supposed to have. So you know this is a you issue. So is there an anti-state? 100%. Is it
Yeah.
necessary? Unfortunately, 100%, because so many people just keep doing things. I mean, look at the cell phones.
Mhm.
You you get into a car and cell phone, cell phone, cell phone, cell phone, cell phone, cell phone. Everybody's on
Yep.
it. Weaving all over. Now the 18 wheelers are weaving all over. Weaving all over. You look at
Yep.
them and they're on their phones.
Uh,
And
yeah.
it's like, I guess we do have to have a nanny state and smack your hand because you can't put it down because you're addicted to this stuff. Addicted to stupidity. So,
hmm
nanny state, Matt, you like it or not?
I necessary evil. I think the thing that is, so I wouldn't say that I like it, but I understand it. I think the problem is that there needs to be a balance, right? And I think that's where the pushback is on the people side, is that at some point the nannying becomes an overprotective level that reduces freedom to a level that is uncomfortable for people. They don't feel like they don't want to be, nobody likes to be told what to do.
Yeah.
And
Well, you remember
especially
my comment on freedom, don't you?
yeah, I don't. What was your comment, Steve?
Well, my comment, we were in that men's group and we were going through the idea of freedom. And I said, you're in the United States of America. You have all the freedom in the world, but you don't like to suffer the consequences of your free choices. So you
That's
don't
right.
have to
Yeah,
work. You don't have to
yeah,
work. You have the freedom not to work. You have the freedom not to stay married. You have the freedom to cheat. You got the freedom to drink. You got the freedom to smoke.
yeah,
You got the freedom to take a gun and go in and rob somebody, but you're not gonna like what happens when you do it.
yep.
So you got the freedom. The question is, do you make smart choices and do you take care of yourself? I
Right.
personally, I hate the nanny state. I like this the the idea of the fittest survive and all that, but we've done away with that a long time ago. I think the biggest problem I have with this whole thing is when I started in this career, it was not as onerous with all the craziness and the nanny state idea.
Right.
And now it has become that. And to a lot of degree, um, we're in this industry to protect people, and we see a lot of stupid things that happen. And we try to prevent that in a very rational way. Unfortunately, we get the brunt of it, and which is like, oh, they said after the, oh yeah, well, this keeps you guys in business. Trust me.
Right.
Trust me. Uh, I don't like to do it either, but unfortunately, sometimes it's necessary. And when we're out there, we're trying to protect lives. And if you can illustrate and demonstrate that you know what you're doing, go about your business. I have no problem with that. But if
Yeah.
you are even if you're a little off, but you have a basic concept and you pick it up quick, okay, very good. But when you look at it and you just shut down and you you just give up, it's like, what do you want me to
Yeah.
do? I mean, to let you
Yeah.
continue to work like that, and anyway, that's all
Yeah.
I got on that, man. You know, the fun
Yeah.
thing, the fun thing was, we because of this, we decided that we're going to be hosting some keg parties. And so we're going to be setting some dates up, be looking for our flyer to come out. We're also doing some cigar parties. So you can come out and meet Matt and I in person, hang out, have a free cigar, have a couple free beers. We're going to get to know each other, and hopefully we won't talk too much shop, but
Yeah.
we want to get with the folks. And if you're watching the podcast, if you are a client, we will be sending out some selected invites to these parties. If you're just watching the show, go ahead and subscribe, and we'll pick a couple folks of our subscribers to invite out to the parties. So hope to see you guys soon, and don't forget to check out our Dollar Training Club, where we have all these great courses. So, Matt,
Yeah.
toodaloo.
Yeah.